Alright, so I was digging around through some more Pokemon prototype data, and I started thinking about something else. Like, what are some Pokemon that might have actually been recycled into something else? And there was one that really kind of stood out to me. It was like Crocky, the bug-eyed crocodile, and it really made me think. What if Crocky was actually recycled in a Totodile, as in the water starter from Gen 2? Because crocodile Pokemon, I can't really think of too many other crocodile Pokemon or alligators, if you want to say, because I know they're two different things, but they're sort of similar. But bear with me here. So, from what I understand in Gen 1, Crocky was supposed to be like a rock type Ballistica, if that's how you pronounce it. Basically, it's like a salamander lizard that could turn you into stone, kind of like a Medusa effect. It's like a mythical creature that's said to exist. And basically the way it would have worked is, Crocky's found in like really dark caves and all that, so like, with its big old eyes it's able to like steer into your soul basically, and like, you wouldn't be able to move. So again, stone petrification, or however you pronounce it, basically, stun locking you. You wouldn't be able to move, paralyzed, paralysis, whatever. But however, though, Totodile is a water type Pokemon. It's crocodile. It's also, and I mean, it's blue, so it kind of stands out a little bit. Even though Crocky was like supposed to be like a greenish color, but for some reason it was gray. I don't know. I'd have to really double check, but basically, I wouldn't be surprised, because a lot of these Pokemon that were reused were in Gen 2 and then maybe later delayed to Gen 4. But as of right now, I'm fairly confident that as of right now, Crocky is Totodile, because if you study, like, then it evolves into Croconaut, and then it evolves into Fraligator. You could see the resemblance, kind of like what they were going for. Like, Totodile's got like the big eyes on the side, and he's got that like really adorable smile, because of course he's adorable. It's adorable. And even though personally I like Cyndaquil better, and even Cyndaquil wasn't even really a fire type at one point. Believe it or not, it was actually a ground type. It had the, I don't know how they would have done it. Like, I don't know if Quilava and Typhlosion really existed, like even in a beta form. Who knows how many scrapped ideas they had beforehand that they never got a chance to use. So that's kind of something, actually, if you think about it. Here's something else to think about. There's always going to be more ideas that are never used that they might have had that were ideas before they even got as far as the, what they were going to put into the games, and before they even changed their mind. Because again, Pokemon, we know a perfect example. Cartridge limitations. Satoshi Tajiri clearly stated, again, the creator of Pokemon, and I'll keep saying it, said that they had tons of ideas. Thankfully, most of the ideas they did have, that they did vote on, that they did want to use. So Pokemon did end up becoming what they ultimately in the end wanted it to be. So that's props to him and what he's created. So what do we get? So Totodile learns a bunch of water moves. It's obviously not a ground type or a rock type. No, Crocky was a rock type, not a ground type. I don't say if I said it was a ground type. And I wouldn't be surprised if, because Totodile's a crocodile. It's got a really strong jaw. It's a very good swimmer. It hunts things like in the swamp areas. And now, while technically you don't catch Totodile in the wild, technically speaking, but there have been but if we had to assume where you would find Totodile, you'd probably find it where there's water reservoirs, swamp areas, and maybe some caves too, if there's like cave like water, possibly. But I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest that while Crocky was a ballistica sort of crocodile, I wouldn't be surprised that Totodile obviously wasn't a ballistica, but it was still a very good hunter nonetheless. So you could see some similarities still. Let's see what else. For Alligator, another pretty cool Pokemon. Pretty good at taking out. I mean, like, unless you catch like an ice Pokemon, like in Gen 2, you can take out Lances, Dragonites, and whatnot. Obviously Ice Punch is a must, or you get like Ice Beam from another ice type. Easy way to take out Dragon types. So for Alligator's a must for a lot of people. Typhlosion's pretty good too if you raise it well. But hell, even Meganium was pretty good too. I guess it really just depends on what you're after. But as far as, let's see, Totodile, Actually, Crocky and Totodile actually could learn like some of the same moves. I know that for some strange reason, like, you know, Crocky was able to like, it's like one of those weird parodies. Like, I don't know like how Game Freak like overlooked this at the beginning, but it's like, you know, kind of like when Rhydon could learn Surf even though it was weak against water, which is kind of funny. But it's like the same thing with Crocky. Crocky's a rock type. Rock types are weak against water types, but for some reason it can learn Surf. Not sure if maybe they were still like figuring out what to do at the time, trying to figure out like what's weak against what, and you know, because maybe it was just a bunch of ideas they had that they didn't go back and fix yet. Because when you're like releasing prototype data, you're releasing like unfinished, like they were still like doing something with it, you know. So maybe that's why there are contradictions with it, and maybe even Pokemon has this day. I mean, there have been times where people have even stated, like, you know, like, for example, like, Koga versus Sabrina, you know, like, they give you the Marsh and the Soul badge, but really shouldn't have been the other way around. And there was even reason to believe that, you know, Koga didn't just use poison types, he also had ghost types for some reason. That made sense. So maybe when he gave you the Marsh badge, or he should have gave you the Soul badge instead of the Marsh badge, or vice versa. You know, Sabrina and Koga should have had their badges mixed around, kind of like how Golduck and Psyduck should have had their names mixed around. You know, even though there was another Pokemon called Weird Duck and somewhere in the middle of it. But it was really interesting to think that, you know, Psyduck was the one that was always confused, and Golduck and Psyduck should have had their names mixed around, because while Psyduck had psychic powers, so did Golduck. But Golduck was a master of psychic types, and more than Psyduck was. But Golduck was Golduck. It should have been Golduck should have been Psyduck, and Psyduck should have been Golduck. But it's interesting to think, like, you know, how many ideas they really had mixed around, and you know, while they did still put them in the games, it does make you wonder, you know, what was their real intention over time. But I wouldn't be surprised, you know, like, again, just like many other ideas, you know, maybe they just didn't see the light, but most of it was there, though, somehow. So, like, Crocky was eventually reused into another Pokemon, but what that Pokemon was, I guess we'd have to figure it out. My guess, I'm still standing by, I wouldn't be surprised if it was Totodile, because there are similarities, and it does evolve, so... Although Crocky, as far as we know, doesn't have any evolutions, but if it did... They didn't put it in the games, though. So again, if you like these kind of videos, again, comment, rate, and subscribe. I'll be making more once I come to some analysis. But as of right now, I wouldn't be surprised that a lot of these Pokemon that were scrapped were eventually reused into something else.